And I want to come now to an understanding of what actually production is about. What actually is this economic process when we talk about social economy, socioeconomics. We always have to think as well about this part of hesitating, using it, the economic side of it. Hesitating to use the word is that any understanding of the economic side is actually looking at something of a wider sense of production. Production of goods is usually what we understand as the focus, as the core of any economic process. Production of goods being in the center, and actually, if we go a step further in modern societies, it is not the production of goods, but it is the production of commodities. Commodities being there, being produced for being exchanged on the market between people and realizing their value in part of this exchange process. But in which way ever we take it, production is a social process. It's a social process, a wider process, due to the fact that it stands in a wider framework of societies. I don't want to look at the emergence of the development, the historical process behind it, but I want to give you a definition that marks one very important point in this context. This is the production, this is the term of an accumulation regime. It's going back to French economists, the theory of regulation. Michel Aguileta, one of the most important people in this area, and I want to quote Bob Jessup, who says the accumulation regime is a particular combination of production and consumption which can be reproduced over time despite conflictual tendencies. I'll come back to one part of this definition later, but first another definition from this school. This accumulation regime is part and parcel or linked to a mode of regulation. It's nothing that is independent, just as an economic process of accumulation of capital. But what happens is that we find at the same time a mode of regulation. This mode of regulation is defined again by Bob Jessup as an institutional ensemble and complex of norms which can secure capitalist reproduction pro tempore despite the antagonistic character of capitalist social relations. So far we are dealing with a complex process again, which is about producing economic values. This is at the core of it, and it is about producing values in or within the capitalist framework. Accumulation of capital. Any capitalist economy won't work without focusing on this. But it is a political question then of how to balance the different parts of it. It is a political process of how to balance power. And it is a power process in itself. Saying a political process of how to balance power means not only or primarily here looking at the power between different groups of society, but looking at something that is contained in the term power. If you go into other languages, French and German and Italian, for instance, you find a double meaning of power. pouvoir in French is the ability of doing something. I can do, and it is might. It is power in the traditional or everyday's language, or everyday's understanding. I have the power and I can determine what is going to happen. So the ability and the might. In German you find the same, the Macht, from machen, to do, to act, and having power, being able to determine. Can go through many other languages. Unfortunately, I cannot go through Finnish, but you may think about it yourself if there is another, if there is a similar link. So accumulation regimes are as well about looking at this. Who is actually able to do something, who has the capability to act in a certain way, and on the other hand, who has the power, the might, who can force the direction of this process. There are different points made in economic theory on this, and one important point is, of course, made by Marx, the distinction of those who own capital, who have the control of the means of production, and those who do not have it. Another aspect that is important for the social economy debate later on is the relationship between accumulation regime and mode of regulation. Usually we say the accumulation regime, as looking at the objective forces, is the crucially important, is the central moment here. But at the same time, we can question this and say, actually, it is the question of how do we regulate things and how how do we regulate this process of accumulation. Division of labor is one important aspect here, and what is called in sociology long chains of interdependence. In ancient societies or in old ways of production, you find very simple short chains of interaction. It's not hugely divided, but we are looking at I do it here and now, and I control the entire process. Today, producing high-tech instruments, cars, whatsoever, is nothing that happens here and nothing controlled by one person. It's a complex process where actually not only many people are involved, but many countries are involved, where different parts of the work take place in different parts of the world, and where we have complex issues. Now, one important point in this context of looking at production is that the process of production is in another way a social process as well. It is about the economic process of producing goods. But if we look at it, there's another point to it, that production actually consists of different elements. 4 can be made out, most important, and saying elements means that they are elementary forms. You have to take them as from where the entire process of production as totality emerges. It's production, meaning the productive process in the strict sense, using tools and applying them and availing of an outcome that is different than the input. But it is at the same time consumption. We consume our own power, our own energy. We consume resources, natural resources. In most of the processes of production, there is some kind of natural resource going into it. And at the same time, we distribute something. We distribute, in simple terms, energy. My hand using the screwdriver, distributing the power from here onto the tool, onto the screw, and ending up in this product. And then we have exchange as well. That for being able to produce here, I have to exchange, and after that I exchange again this product, because it does not make any sense of having the product as such, although it may make sense if it is a small product for being valuable as use value, that I can use it immediately. But this is in simple societies, and we are not there anymore. We are in complex societies where exchange is part of the entire process, and where we have to deal with these four elements: production in the strict sense, consumption of energy, of natural resources, consumption as well of producing new needs, distribution, and then finally exchange. So far, I hope that gave a little bit an overview of what it is about when we talk about production and the economic process as process of producing something, producing goods, producing value for the exchange process, but as well as social process and as political process. This would be then the end of section 3, and I would go to section 4 then.